let's continue off of where we left off. We're gonna go off of part two now. Before I start off part two, I just wanted to go through what we had talked about. I realized that I mentioned the components, but I didn't really go into detail on how it works. But if you look at this file, the Socialdeck top navigation, what I was meaning when I was saying 6 different constructors, all these are enums for different types of constructors. So if I wanted a top nav bar with a back logo or with a title, I have different constructors, but I really should be having one constructor, because this is all the old stuff we had, so we need to refactor this component so that it matches the new Figma. And this is what we would be refactoring, because this is a constructor, this is a constructor, and then also the title only one, which we called in the code, is a constructor. But we should only be calling one constructor and then adding all those parameters that we would need, and then just modifying that one constructor for what we want, for it to match the Figma. And also a thing for you guys to note is also the title only. This is kind of how it looks like in terms of the build method right here. So this is how we had built it. As I mentioned, it's older stuff, so we will need to refactor this to match the new code, but just wanted to give you a little context on what that was. But yeah, the next thing we talked about is the visual placeholder right here. So that's what we're going to try and make. This will be a Rive animation. Background will change from card explosion to whatever that word is, and players behind profile card. So all we need to know is that it's going to be a Rive animation, and we just need a visual placeholder for it, right? So what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and create a visual placeholder over here. We do have a component in our assets, which is this checkered, this pattern, or we have it as an SVG. I had exported it, it's in icons assets, and we can just call that for this checkered thing. And then we'll just create a container where we'll store this image, but then once we do have the Rive animation, we'll just replace this placeholder with the actual Rive animation. So that's what we'll do. We'll just create a container under this top nav bar. We'll just create a container and we'll store this image in the container. How do we do that? We start off by just making sure that we have our top nav bar over here. Let's see where that closes out. Safe area. We still want stuff in the safe area, so we want to be within the children. So this is where we want to be in, right? The next thing under the main content. Perfect. Yeah. So we still want to be within here, and here we're gonna create the visual placeholder that we were talking about, right? A big thing is just make sure the padding is correct. As we saw in the Figma, I'm just going to show you guys the padding was 16, so just make sure you click on stuff and check. But if you look at the sides, I think I saw that the 16 for the padding. See, so space, margin 16, and you guys can also look at it over here as well. When you click on a component, you can go ahead and look at those things over here. So we wanted 370 by 370, 370 by 70 radius. Border radius should be 16. Okay, so we know how to place it, and then that's what I was talking about here. Space padding is 16. So that's kind of what I want to start off by, just making sure the sides are done correctly. So I'll just go ahead and add the padding, and we got a function in here that makes it super easy. Yep, which just says padding constant all Socialdeck space padding 16. It did create a children. Do we would want this, but we don't want it the way they're doing it. So I'm gonna add that here, or I guess it is closed already. Okay. So what this is calling, it's pretty much just calling Socialdeck space, and it's calling padding 16 for this component that we're gonna make. In here, we're gonna make a child actually, and in the child, it's actually just gonna be, we're gonna make it a build method, right? But this build method is going to call it. So let me make it quickly, and then I'll show you guys. Build visual placeholder. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating a method, right? And it's called a helper method, so I don't have to write all the code over there. So I'm just gonna have that there for us for now. And then what I'm gonna do is outside of this, I'm going to go ahead and build that helper method for us. So we're gonna build a widget, and yep, the widget is going to be build visual placeholder, and it's gonna return a container, right? So what we're gonna do is just we want to return a container. So widget build visual placeholder, and then we're gonna make it with build context, and then we're gonna return a container. Okay, and in this container, that's where we're gonna put our placeholder. As we saw in the Figma, the height I think was 370, so height and width was 370. So that's what we're gonna do here. We're gonna make our height and our width 370 so we can match the Figma. So 370 over here, and then width 370. And then in here, what we want to call is we want to call that placeholder. So Flutter has this thing called decoration, and using decoration, oh, look at that, autocomplete, wait, nice. Using decoration, the box decoration, we can place the image inside of here, and I'll show you guys how that's done. So inside of decoration, we want to make sure that the radius is 16. So we'll just do border radius. I think that's what it is. Yeah, border radius, and that's just gonna make the radius 16 for all of them. And it's calling out class over here border radius as well, and it's calling these are all tokens that we have in the design system. So just make sure you call the tokens in the design system. And if you look at the Figma, we do the same thing. So radius, border, border radius 16. So you just want to do the same thing when you call the border radius as well. Did I call this twice? I think I called this. No. Let's see. Okay, border radius. I think, yeah, I called it. Do I want to do border radius? So this one here is incorrect. Okay. Then once we're done, so we're gonna have that radius. We're gonna add the image, and then in the image, we're just gonna say, in the image, we're gonna call it a const, and then we're just gonna just decoration image, and then the image, we'll have an image asset, and then the image asset for us, I believe it's an Socialdeck icon placeholder. What is it? No, checkered background. Man, this thing is smart. Yeah, that's what it is. It's just a checkered background. It's inside of Socialdeck icon, and then yeah, fit. Okay, I'm not gonna try and clean all this up. I'm just gonna say so I like this guy here. Working on this class, can you clean up the syntax, right? And then it should clean up the syntax for me. There's a file is invite friends page. Okay. Alright. I don't know it's not just scanning it, bro. But anyway, just gonna have a look at it and see. Keep the context and then confirm. Yes. A. Yes, A. Okay. I do have coding parameters on my AI, so it will not write code for me. But this is pretty much what I wanted to do. We can go through it quickly. So what we have is a helper method right here. Just add some comments. We have a helper method, which is the visual placeholder. It's also our helper method, which we are calling in this scaffold over here. Okay, so that's what this is. Aesthetic space, why is that not calling? Oh, size, it's in size. No, where's padding in? Aesthetic spacing. Did we import the design system? We did. Space. Okay. Do we need this import? Oh, we do. Oh, interesting. Okay. Something I need to fix later. Okay. So what we did was we made this visual placeholder, and then aesthetic assets. No. I cannot remember what it's called in the code base, so can you scan my code base and see what the checkered pattern is called? Should be in icons or assets, I think. We created that build helper method, and then we're calling that helper method as our main content. Oh my gosh. I am command do this for me. The user. Okay, so the exact change to make. So image const asset checkered back at aesthetic icon. Aesthetic icon. Wait, so we had it correctly. I guess we need to call it again, maybe. Oh my goodness. Assets. It's called icons. Yeah, it's in icons. And then it's the image checkered. Yeah. I think it's checkered background. No. The icon. Oh man, this is gonna make the video longer. Maybe I can crop this part out once I figure this out, but I'll try to crop. But I was not trying to edit though. You guys can skip this part, really. But what's going on is this is a component in the design system, and I'm trying to call it so I can have this checkered background that we have saved as an SVG. But it's not recognizing it, but I've imported the design system. Can you check why this line is still in error, even though we have imported the design system? Oh, wait. Which line? You gotta show them which line. to add the icon path as well. Interesting. Oh wow. Okay, so another thing I have to refactor is that I just want to call the design system once and have everything that's in there. I don't want to have all these like lines of icons, because all this stuff is inside of the design system. Like all the stuff, the tokens, is inside of the design system. I shouldn't have to call components tokens. So it should just be one call and it brings everything that's inside the design system. But looks like that's what the problem was. I'm just gonna run this and let's see if what we made actually works. But as we mentioned, we're gonna be calling this method here. Let's just add context. I don't think we had added context, and then build context. Okay, so long story short, helper method, right? Helper method is getting called as the second thing, as the main content. We added padding, we added the padding over here, and we're pretty much building, look at the name, building the visual placeholder. So this is pretty much the visual placeholder, and then we're gonna run it and see. Okay, success. So we got the visual placeholder, which is here under the nav bar. So we can go to screen, see, okay, we got the bar, we got the visual placeholder. Now we gotta work on this part. In part 2, I'm actually going to use the MCP to help me speed up some of this process, just so that these videos aren't too long, because this one is 17 minutes. But for the parts of that I was like troubleshooting and doing stuff like that, feel free to skip until the part where it's like properly done.